As I was thinking on what to say today in this video, I got to thinking on wokeness. You know, this woke mind virus that just seems to be flooding and spreading across our country, and not just our country, but the Western world. And I got to thinking, what does it mean to be woke? What do they think that they're saying about themselves when they say, hey, I'm woke? And, you know, they think that they've come with some kind of new knowledge that no one before them has ever had before. That they have clarity that the people before them never had. They think that, you know, the old people, the old generations, they were against gay relationships. They were against abortions. They were against transitioning your children from one gender to the other. And they don't see nothing wrong with it. They've come to realize that, you know, critical race theory, transgenderism, abortion, homosexuality, they think all these things are good things that we should not only embrace but encourage others to do. And that makes them woke. But the truth is, they're not woke. They've become wise in their own eyes, and they've become blind, which they were already blind because they never accepted Christ in the first place to come to that point. But they're blind, and if the blind lead the blind, then both will fall into the ditch. Those are Jesus' words. You know, our nation, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's look in Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1, it says, because that when they knew God, and think of America, we knew God, they glorified him not as God. And we quit glorifying God as God, didn't we not? Neither were they thankful. And this is not the most unthankful generation today that you've ever seen. I've tried, even in my own life, to raise thankful children. And so oftentimes they're not as thankful as I think they should be. And yet I see other people's children who are not being raised in church who are far less thankful. Think about that. We have such an unthankful generation, but became vain in their imaginations. In other words, they're thinking upon things that didn't profit. And anything that doesn't lead you to God is vain. And their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. And what is the one thing our nation and the West in general, and some of the East even, really seem to have embraced today? And that's humanism, evolution. Evolution led to so much humanism we see today, because we don't believe that God created us anymore, but we've been enlightened, and now we know that life started millions of years ago, but before that, billions of years before that, there was an explosion that created everything to put it all in order. An explosion did that, by the way. An explosion. And I don't know if you've ever seen an explosion, but I've never seen order come from an explosion, only chaos. But anyway, an explosion called the Big Bang happened and brought everything into order. And millions of years ago, some chemicals swirled together, became the first protein. It learned how to self-replicate, becoming the first single-celled organism. And then that single-celled organism gave rise to all the life we see today. That takes a lot of faith to believe that, by the way. I have much more easy time believing that someone created me, someone designed me, to think that I'm a random process that came about by chance. But that's where we're at today. We think that, you know, we can look at nature and see the answers to what humans are like because of what nature's like. And we look at things such as penguins having same-sex relations and think, oh, well, there's animals having same-sex relations. Well, it's no wonder humans have the same thing. It's just a part of our evolutionary backstory. No, those penguins that are having sex with each other, those gay male penguins that are having sex with each other, their line ends with them. Why? Because they cannot reproduce. You can't tell me that homosexuality is a genetic thing. You just can't tell me that. It's a lust thing, not a genetic, because you have to have sex between two genders, a male and a female, to produce offspring to pass down the genes. Well, A gay person can have sex with a woman and have a kid. Well, yes, they can, but it would eventually have to die off. It don't make any sense to say it's genetic. It's a heart issue, not a mind issue. It's a heart issue. And it's not natural. It actually goes against nature. In fact, the Bible tells us about how the creation groans because of sin. And if you look on in chapter 1 and in verse 27, it says, likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burning their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of the error which was meet. And where did AIDS come from? Where did it start? Where did we first start seeing AIDS? It was between gay men who had sex with one another. You know, God allows us to go after these ideas because, hey, let's just do what we want to. If we refuse Him, He'll let us have our lives without Him. He ain't got a problem with that. He loves us. He'll give us what we want. And if we want to have gay sex in this nation, well, guess what? He allowed it. In 2015, He allowed it to become a law. God allowed that. Why? Because we wouldn't seek after Him. And now we are getting the recompense of the error which was meet. What does it mean, which was meet? The suitable error. We're being recompensed suitably. And what's happening with what's happening to our lives as we're getting more woke, more gay, more transgender, all these things? We're seeing more people die from STDs. We're seeing our children mutilated, made to where they cannot have children ever. And they regret it, usually very soon after they have their transitions. You know, people also look at dogs. I think this is just ridiculous. They'll look at dogs. A dog will hump anything. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. They'll hump anything. It's just the way dogs are. But in the Bible, God calls these sodomites, and a sodomite is a person who practices sodomy, because that's what they were known to be doing in the city of Sodom. But it'll oftentimes in the Bible call sodomites dogs. Male prostitutes, dogs. And we got all these genders today. 72 and counting, or probably more. I don't know. There's always a new gender come out every day, it seems like. And God calls sodomites dogs. And if you're a transgender, if you're a man having sex with men, a woman having sex with women, you're basically a sodomite. And the Bible calls them dogs. And they got all these different genders in the LGBT community. How many different breeds of dogs are there? That thought hit me one day. How many different breeds of dogs are there? How many different genders do we have? I bet they're starting to line up. Just a thought I had. But we can, as Christians, we can hate the LGBT community. Or can we? Can we? Can Christians hate people? No. We're not allowed to. God tells us that if we can't love our brother whom we can see, how can we love a God who we cannot see? So Christians, I'm doing this video to bring to light that this woke mind virus is not of God. It cannot be of God. And it is contrary to God. But at the same time, we cannot hate our neighbor and love God. We have to show them love. We have to show them compassion. They have a heart issue, which many Christians have had in their past. We all have heart issues before we come to God. God has to cure those issues. Only He can. But that don't mean that we just sit back and accept what they're doing either. We need to be trying to vote in leaders who will go against it, who will bring in laws that will change the way things are. They'll change the status quo to where our nation quits leaning to this left agenda so hard. And I don't necessarily think we need to go all the way to the right either, because the Bible tells us not to go to the left or to the right, but to follow after God. And our nation's gotten so split over if the left is right or the right is right. And Christians, we've taken our eyes off of God and we've focused upon the politics. And I know on the right of the politics, it's more conservative and they're more inclined towards God. But the Republicans even have their big issues. They won't take a hard stance against abortion. They won't take a hard stance against sodomy. They won't take a hard stance on any of these things. And I'm sorry, our governor in Arkansas, Sarah Sanders, she got elected, and they were chugging beers and smoking cigars. And what's the Bible say about drunkards? It says that drunkards will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So we need to be careful about our leaders. I know so often we have a choice between evil and the lesser evil. And that's usually what we have these days. But until our nation stops looking for a man to save this nation and starts looking for the man, Jesus Christ, to save our nation, we're going to stay lost. And that's just the way it is. Hope y'all have a blessed day.